Oh, me, oh, my.
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And Doc, as you know, one of our fine partners at the DSP Network is The Athletic. And The Athletic Detroit specifically is fine premium coverage for passionate and very passionate Detroit sports fans. And listeners of this very episode of Tiger Talk with Chirco and Company, episode number 155, can get 30% off the first year of an annual subscription to The Athletic today by visiting theathletic.com/DSP. And welcome to the latest, the freshest edition of Tiger Talk with Chirco and Company. I am your host, Vito Geronimo Chirco, alongside my usual sidekick and broadcast partner in fun. That is Doc from Doc and Jack, John Charles Macaroon. John, how are you doing?
Vito, both of us now, credentialed media, have covered the Detroit Tigers for the network. We are Detroit Tigers reporters. We have now added another layer in terms of what we can describe to our audience. We both were there. We went to Comerica Park. I've done it now about half a dozen times. You've gone once, and you had the experience. I can't wait to talk to you about it this week. And I think I told you that part of the reason why I pushed so hard was that I do believe you, Adam, Jason, Shay, everybody here that does work on the network can go on and do bigger, better things if they wanted to outside of this network. You guys are doing great things for the network, but to see you, go there and to get your insight. I know I was blowing up your phone and I said I wouldn't, but I was so excited for you to be there. I think it came through that I was thrilled as the entrepreneur of this project, as the guy behind it, as the guy that earned the credentials, that you going there was just awesome. And really, probably, I was happier to text you while you were there than I am actually walking through and being part of it, because, you write for the Free Press, you deserve access, and for the network to be able to give you that opportunity, it was awesome. And you took the sarcastic article that I put up in stride. It was hilarious. It got huge numbers. It was funny. It was a parody off of The Athletic. It was funny. I know we're friends with The Athletic, so nobody messaged me and be like, hey, what kind of cockamamie article did you write there? And you and I collaborated on that funny article. And it was a little bit of truth, a little bit of sarcasm, a little bit of wit and fun. But in the end, you got to go and cover a game as a podcaster at Comerica Park. What was it like?
It was unique because being a podcaster, I never really expected it myself, being there and having that access to be at a game to cover a game like that.
In the press box.
In the press box, of all things. And then I was on the field to have the pre-game accessibility to the field, to see the players walking around, the Twins. I was denied by Joe Mauer, as he put in that article, the satirical, full of satire article that you wrote there. But it did happen where I was denied by Joe Mauer, even though he was a super nice guy. And I really think if I would have been there earlier, a thing that I learned, if I would have been there earlier, I think I would have gotten access to talk to Joe Mauer, at least for 5 minutes. So it would have happened, didn't happen, but hey, you live and learn, and I learned a vital lesson being at that first game that I was at this past Saturday.
First and foremost, I had provided you a little bit of instruction before the game, kind of like, okay, you got to get, a pass to get into parking. I gave you directions. I said, this is what you do. I gave you kind of the layout. When you first got there and you went into the media entrance, what was that like? So you see the security, you see the metal detector, you tell them, hey, I'm here for a daily pass. Did they get your pass the right way? They went and got it, and you showed them your ID and all that good stuff?
They had the pass right away. So it was easy to get it. No problems were given to me, no complaints from me, because it was fully easy as it could have been, in my opinion.
Nice. And then you went up the elevator, and my description of the door, the way you go through, was fully accurate. You found your way to where you need to go pretty easily?
And I talked to the guy that was there, the security guy there, Dale or something. I forget his name now. Probably not even close to Dale. But nice dude. I think he's worked there for a long time in that press box. He kind of showcases everything, gives you the lay of the land. Tells you where to go. Like he told me kind of where to go, what I would be able to see, what it entailed, where to go to sit, where the food was. He gave me the lay of the land like you did. You tried to do, but I kind of learned from him as well. So it was a...
No, wait a minute. I didn't get that.
You didn't
Did
get
ask?
that? No, I asked. I kind of asked a little bit too, and then he gave me the lay of the land. Maybe you saw because of my short stature and I looked younger than you. I look a lot younger than you when you have the bald head, too, so might have been willing to help me out a little bit more than you as well. Maybe he assumed, because you look older than me, you are. I mean, no doubt about that. Maybe he assumed that you've been there before and knew the lay of the land and knew where to go.
You got the tour.
I got the tour. Now, he didn't actually walk me around. He told me where to go. I mean, it's not like he said, hey, Vito, Mr. Vito Chirco, let me shake your hand.
Yeah.
Oh, so honored to meet you. He didn't bow down and all that.
Yeah.
But he told me where to go. Super nice guy. And really, everybody, the full entire Detroit Tigers staff there was cordial and super nice to me.
Oh, you met others as well?
Met others as well on the field. I kind of learned what to walk through to get onto the field, which you haven't done yet, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
There's a tunnel where the umpires go into the field, come out. When they exit the field, too, you didn't even know that, did you? About getting onto the field that way. So that was cool to find that out. And then it was super easy to get onto the field. And then you have to stay on the dirt, stay by the dugout, not go past the dugout. And if you do that, I guess you're fine. And I was fine. It worked out for me great. No complaints once again.
So what were you thinking as you walk onto the field, as you make your way to the press box? You sat in seat. Well, you didn't sit exactly where
Not
I
exactly
sat.
in your seat because I was allowed. Once I had all these pleasures and perks that you didn't have, I guess, because you sat in seat 27. You've always sat in that so far. Or seat 28.
The far right. Yep,
okay.
Of the press box.
I was able to sit right next to the lovely and the highly affluent, talented, uber talented Max Boltman of the Athletic, who played at my charity softball game. Super nice dude himself, and he was helpful as well. He told me about the clubhouse access that we could get maybe in the future. We don't have that kind of access right now, because he had told me for that, they open up the clubhouse to the media at 2:30.
Oh.
So you would have had to really get there early if you wanted to get that clubhouse access.
So you can get there at 2:30.
That was before a 6:10 start time game, remember, too,
So
this past
2:30.
Saturday. So about
Yeah.
almost 4 hours before the game, you have to get there to get into the clubhouse.
About 3:30 for a 7 o'clock game, then probably.
I would say 3.5 hours at least. So get there by 3:30. You get the clubhouse access. But right now we don't get that access.
Yep.
Being on the field earlier than later is good because then you're able to maybe talk to a player more easily. Where you're not going to ensure that as well without being there as early.
Yes. Let me ask you this: we don't have clubhouse access,
Uh-huh.
but. There was room to talk at the end of the season, but I said, look, I respect the policy. So I said, look, you guys have been so accommodating that I respect the policy. I can wait because I think that we can get a lot of experience beforehand in the time frame that's allotted. And look, in the end, I do want to do it right. I don't want to just go there and say we did it. I think that from the coverage that I provided and what you provided, we've done fairly well. We've given insight. We've taken photos that others haven't in terms of I was the first person to note that number 47 was carved into the field. I took a lot of photos. I got some audio. I was there in a media scrum. You got some great information, insights regarding some facts and stats and all that good stuff. But I said, look, if they have a policy, I'll honor it. And I told that to the PR staff. I said, I honor your policy. I like it. I respect it. If that's what it is for new media outlets, we'll wait. But there was a chance to kind of do that stuff sooner. But I said, look, we're new. If that's the initiation phase, I'm not going to challenge it. I think that's the right thing to do.
Well, the thing is, what are we going to do? We're going to go complain that we're not going to get any access. We lose our credentials. I mean, that could happen too, right?
On the other end of the spectrum, if you're serious and you're like, look, no, I need this, and this is what it would do for my outlet, you can fight it, you can, make a little bit of noise. People don't care. Look, see, the one part is that, you and I are nice guys. We consider other people's thoughts.
Sure.
We don't want to send nasty emails out to anyone else. We want to be nice. But I do suspect that some people, if they wanted to push a little harder, would go and go, I need this and I need that, and this is why it's important, and fight a little bit harder. But I say, look, if that's the rule, the biggest thing that they did was they were the first organization to take a chance. I mean, others have had to partner with other organizations to make this happen. We've done it independently,
organically, independently, which other organizations and entities haven't done or been able to do. So it says something about us, right, as a network too.
Yeah, and so we've been able to organically represent ourselves independently to go do it. So if there's rules and regulations, I would respect that if any of the pro teams said, look, you got to wait a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, as long as you respect what we're doing and you don't really put any restrictions other than what your natural rules are, I'm okay with it. And I think we've been treated fairly. We've been allowed to do what we wanted to do, and I'm thrilled. Like I said, it was a great experience for you to go out there. You saw Saturday game, 6-10 start versus the Twins. It was a loss, though, right? It was not a good game. It was I think it was 3-2?
4-3 final.
Yeah.
Niko Goodrum hit a 2-run jack in the ninth inning to make it close, make it exciting for the 2,000 fans that were still in the ballpark in the ninth inning.
So
it was dead there, by the way.
Did you get the dessert?
I didn't try to anything. I'm
okay.
clean cut, man, prim and proper, watching my figure. I know you're not. You should be. I know you've told us all about this diet that you're supposedly on. But you know what? The thing that stinks is the food you have to spend for. Yeah. But we did talk about it, I think, already, maybe off the air too. We understand it because there's 81 games at home. Yeah. So they have to make some money as well on the food because when you have less home games like the Lions, I wonder what they do because they have less home games, only 8 at home during the 17-week regular season, right?
Free food.
They must have free food.
Yeah,
but with 81 home games, they kind of have to charge you something to make something off of the media, too. So they're still making something off of us, even though we're getting the access. But that's kind of our way of paying our dues then for getting the access from them?
Side note here, in the interest of full disclosure, the Tigers took a chance on us, but my alma mater still slams a door in my face.
MSU still slams the door in your face. How about that? After all these years you've been knocking on the door, hardcore, 2 fists, knocking on the door, and nothing's come from it.
Michigan State University Spartans won't let me cover the Spartan football team this year, and the Detroit Lions, they said, due to policy and lack of space, they said no now for the 4th consecutive year. But in the end, in interest of full disclosure, we'll keep trying. And with the increased opportunity, I think that we're going to have with the Pistons and Tigers, I think that it'll show that, look, we're serious. We're not going to be troublemakers, that we are all here on the network, at least trained a little bit in the art of journalism and giving out information.
Well, one person at least is.
Me, exactly.
Yeah, not really. But I met somebody who was trained in journalism. Well, I didn't meet him, but I saw him at the game. Anthony Fennick, beat writer for the Tigers. He was under the assumption that I might have been doing things for the Free Press when I saw him. He thought I was helping the Free Press out the game I was at this past Saturday. How about that?
So he says, "Hey, Vito, you're here.
Are you here helping us out?"
Yeah.
Meaning the Free Press, because I work at the Free Press as a freelancer. He was thinking under the assumption fully that I was doing things for the Free
What'd you
on
say?
Saturday. Then I said no for the podcast network. Then he brought up in his own words, and maybe not verbatim, but that he would like to come back on the podcast. And he's been on numerous times, about a handful of times now. He's loved being on the past, talking with you and I, mostly me, via Tigers Talk. But always a pleasant guest. He is beat writer for the Tigers. Love talking to him. Got the chance to chat with him again this past Saturday, and he thought I was doing the work for the Freep. How about that?
And then you say, he's like, what? You're here for
I think he was probably shocked. I don't think he was shocked. He was mildly surprised. Let's just say that.
And the good thing is people see us. We are around. It's not like this is the first time people have seen us. We've been
Correct.
at the
We've been at
NCAA.
other games, yes.
And the best part is that you're a guy that's easy to remember. I mean,
sure, they're going to, hey, I get anything about it. And then I'm talkative. I'm not like just sitting in the corner, so I'm short, the shortest guy there. Right? I think I'm always the shortest guy there, by the way. So I made history.
Are you sure? Wait a minute.
Well, if you're shorter than me, I don't know, you got something going on with you, I think. Because I got something going on with me. I probably am the shortest guy always there, covering as a media member. Now, not a fan or spectator, but as a media member. Don't you think I'm the shortest guy always there?
Vito,
shortest male or female?
I think you could look it up. I mean,
might be making but Doc, there's been other people that have been shorter that have covered events. I'm not the shortest guy in the history of media. I'm going to be close. I bet I'm close.
I think that's something.
Not to make a mockery out of this, but it might be true.
That
I'm one of the shortest.
Why
like
I'm
top
laughing.
5, top 10.
Yeah, I was going to tweet out on the next.
You think we're making history with me being there? Oh, thanks, man. We're making history for that reason, huh?
On the latest Tigers Talk, Vito is super proud. Quote, I'm the shortest media member in the history of
in the state of
sports.
Michigan right now. I bet currently I haven't seen anybody shorter. Have you? When you've been at Pistons games or other events yourself? When I've been at events, Michigan football and other events, I don't think I've seen anybody shorter. It's going to be hard to find somebody.
No, I know we've appreciated little people in their work, but you said there have been little people that have been covering Detroit sports.
Detroit Red Wings, like PA announcer in the past, Doc Andrews, who I met the son of Doc Andrews.
No, but
I know he was
journalist,
one in the past.
Journalist.
He was a journalist. Broadcaster. I'm a broadcaster/journalist. It's hard to distinguish what I am. What am I?
Okay.
Entertainer, podcaster, broadcaster, a little bit of a journalist.
How about, could you stake claim to being the shortest Detroit sports reporter in history?
Well, I think Doc Andrews, once again, was a reporter. I think he might. I don't know what his full titles were. And I have a variety of titles. What is my main title? I got like 3-4 titles right now that I'm carrying, right? So it's hard to distinguish me right now.
You're a reporter/journalist.
There we go.
Podcaster,
reporter, kind of journalist at the very end.
Sky told us, in terms of what we really technically do, we're multimedia journalists.
Because he is, and he told us to call ourselves that. He did. You're right. Now, are we fully that? We do for the most part because we're social media based. You tweet out a lot of stuff. I do. I have my Twitter following of 1,000 plus now. That's great for me. Yep. Finally made it to 1,000 plus. Good for me. And the podcast network is 38 plus 1,000 followers on Twitter. Follow us at Detroit Podcast on Twitter. So we're kind of multimedia journalists cut from that cloth of that mold, and we're working our way up, and we want to cover more Tigers games and other sporting events like your MSU Spartans, like the Detroit Lions moving forward. And you got to believe it's conceivable, right? I think it's a reachable, attainable goal.
Yeah.
Now, near future or long-term future? Now, that's a question for another day probably, right?
Exactly. But we're still in the mix, and that's what we're going to do is do the best that we can to cover Detroit sports and have a good time. And it's really fun being part of the media and whatever version, whatever labels people want to give us. All I want is to be known as a good follow, entertaining, factual information.
Factually based most of the time.
That people
a lot of entertaining.
Yeah, people I do think are smart enough to know when I'm being sarcastic and being entertaining as opposed to being factual. There's a good mix. I think that's the best blend of a follow. If somebody's just giving you facts all the time, it's boring.
They're still, yeah.
And sports are fun, and I think that being sarcastic, being witty makes it really fun. But now getting into the actual team that you and I both cover.
Sure.
The Tigers definitely play a much better brand of baseball at home. It's significantly different. They're above 500 playing at Comerica Park. They're in the middle of a series versus the White Sox. They took game 1. They won the series 2 out of 3 games versus Minnesota. The Tigers play much better baseball at home, and as we've all seen, Niko Goodrum likes to destroy the baseball, especially versus his old club.
Kills the Twins. 4 home runs now, 9 RBIs against the Twinkies. I mean, he's killed the baseball against the Twinkies. A batting average above 300 against his former club as well in his first season in the Old English D and a Tigers uni, I'm saying. So he's crushed the baseball against the Twinkies, and the Tigers aren't in the mix or anything. But hey, they're on the up and up. They won the series against the Twins, Doc. They beat the White Sox again. They're 9-1 now against the White Sox this season, 6-0 on the road at U.S. Cellular Field, or Guaranteed Rate Field, whatever it's called now, in Chi-Town, the south side of Chicago. So the Tigers have really dominated against the Chi Sox on the south side of Chicago as well, and at Comerica. And like you said, they've been much better, the Tigers, at Comerica this season than on the road, where they're 20-plus games below 500. And that's the mark of a bad ball club, obviously, too.
And we've had an opportunity to see Zach McAllister, new bullpen reliever.
Who didn't look good, by the way, on Saturday. And his first outing with the Tigers had thrown 5 1/3 straight scoreless innings before that outing with the Tigers on Saturday. When I was there, didn't look sharp in his first outing with the Tigers. But you would imagine he'll get a little bit better. He's an effective, maybe not late inning arm, but at least veteran arm that has logged late innings in the past out of the Indians bullpen. In the past 3 years before this season, man, he was getting it done out of the Indians bullpen. So I was kind of surprised that they just parted ways with him, let him walk that easily into an American League Central Division rival, a team they're not worried about in the Central Division right now. And the thing is, kind of reflecting on that, the Tigers pick him up off the scrap heap for nothing, and he's going to pitch the rest of the way this season. But will he really be a member of the Tigers when they get good again? He probably won't be around for that. He's 30, 32 in that age range right now. By the time the Tigers get good again in 2020, let's say, when they're kind of competitive, this guy won't be around. So really, what is he going to bring? What is he bringing to the table? Because you're irrelevant right now. So what does he do for you? I guess he's just a nice veteran presence in the bullpen.
But prior to being picked up, he had, provided the Indians some innings, and he was a guy that in the past was somebody that could be reliable. And organizations are trying to just find relievers that can get the job done because it's so hard. I mean, the Tigers, and it's been well documented, that bullpen does need to be remade, and maybe he can be a piece, somebody that can at least get them into September, to right out the stretch.
Sure, but doesn't matter.
Exactly.
As much as you say that, we want to believe that, we want to be optimistic. The Tigers are a miserable ball club. Thing is, the White Sox are worse off. The Royals are worse off. The Tigers still, as a stinko ball club, are in 3rd place in the American League Central Division. What does that say about the strength of the American League Central Division? It is crappy, beyond crappy, the division, from top to bottom. Well, outside of the Indians, from 2 to 5 in the AL Central, those teams are all completely irrelevant. And the most disappointing ball club in the Central Division this year has been the Twinkies.
Well said, Vito. I want to give the Tigers credit for the ceremony that they did and executed for Jack Morris. Very well done. It was the retirement of number 47. It was, when you got a chance to watch it, the Tigers honored somebody. And I know they have a policy of waiting for players to be in the Hall of Fame to retire their number, but nobody's worn number 47 since Jack Morris. There's been a lot of talk regarding Morris, Trammell, the future potentially of maybe someone like a George Kell, Lou Whitaker, potentially getting their names up on that wall. But all in all, it's just nice to reminisce a little bit about that 84 team, the closeness, and the Tigers did a really good job, the PR staff, the video team staff, of highlighting Jack Morris's career and what a bulldog he was. And I feel like a guy like that would be such an inspiration to be a part of a coaching staff. My God, the guy's got so much experience. He's such a bulldog. And, I know I don't want to cross compare, but a colleague of yours at the Free Press was kind of discussing, does Matthew Stafford bring the necessary bulldog mentality to his team? And it's interesting to look at in that Jack Morris was a bulldog and he was competitive, and maybe he wasn't the most gifted, but when he took the mound, he didn't want to leave. He wanted to compete, and they brought it up. They talked about the fact that people bring up the fact that he had a high ERA, and he said, look, it doesn't matter. He was a guy that no matter how many runs he gave up, wanted to compete, and the Tigers were blessed to have such a good quality team to give him runs, and he still ended up with a lot of victories, a lot of innings pitched, a lot of strikeouts, and that guy, I think, whether you disagree with him being in the Hall of Fame, I think it was nice to see number 47 retired, and I'm excited, hopefully, for the chance for you to see Alan Trammell's number get retired in a similar fashion ceremony. Tigers did a good job of honoring the past.
But they dropped the ball on one thing to bring it up on those replica road jerseys, right? The road unis of Jack Morris, the number 47 road uni of his. They dropped the ball on that one. Now, will they drop the ball on the Alan Trammell replica road jerseys they're going to come out with on the 26th? I did have to go there. I'm sorry, Doc.
It's okay. Hold your horses, because how do you control FedEx? How do you control when
but Doc, you be slamming me. What if I dropped the ball on, replica uniforms that I wore in my co-ed softball league? Everybody from the DSP network was going to receive a courtesy Vito Chirco uniform from a Chirco and Company charity softball game. And we were hyping it up. You were tweeting it, ad nauseum all day long. You would be a Twitter freak, man. You'd be tweeting it all day long. And then I drop the ball and they don't come in. Wouldn't you be upset with me? And don't we have the right to be upset with the Tigers a little bit if we were looking forward to that on this past Sunday and there's no road duty?
Well, Vito, you didn't get audio of Niko Goodrum in the breakout article that I wanted, so I'm like,
Yes, you were upset with me over that, a little thing. How about these big unis? Everybody was looking forward to these unis as a Hall of Famer now, and then they're not there when you go on Sunday. And what if you didn't receive that update? What if you didn't see that update? Then you're waiting in line all that time for that uni, and just that one uni.
You make a good point in that. When something like that happens, it's very tough to announce that. Well, we're not giving you the jersey, we're giving you a voucher.
And then on the day of, they let everybody know, too. What time was it? You texted me at 10:30, so it came out around 10:30, right?
Yeah, people could have already been there.
That's what I mean. We're waiting in line for hours, probably.
No, 10,000 people, you could probably have gone there around 11:15, 11:30 and still gotten one. There's not a lot of people that are actually in the ballpark for these games. You know that. But I will ask you, do you think people take giveaways too seriously? Do you think I think the response was fair from the Tigers. They apologized profusely. They gave vouchers, and they said, look, if you were one of the 10,000 people that did not get a replica Jack Morris jersey, you can get 2 tickets to a game later on this year for free or early next season. I mean, what more can you do? I know it is a big, huge blunder. It's funny.
It's a big letdown.
But you can't control it. I mean, all you can do is say, where is it? Okay, what's the plan for it to get here? You can't make the mail come. I mean,
you can't make it happen. But what if I told you?
I'd laugh.
What if I told you, I didn't get anything recorded from my interview with Jack Morris, Alan Trammell? What if I dropped the ball like that, but I apologized profusely? Do they make up for it for the fact that I didn't, get that recording of my interview with Jack Morris, that soundbite from him, from Alan Trammell on the day in which his jersey number is retired at Comerica Park? What would you think about me, even if I apologized profusely?
Yeah.
Will you just forgive me and act like nothing ever happened?
It's important. It's important to deliver on these giveaways because people take them a little bit seriously.
I mean, I was exaggerating it, by the way, a little bit of hyperbole. I don't care that much. I wasn't even there, but my parents were. They didn't get it, but we have 2 vouchers now to get them through the mail, or I think we can bring them to the ballpark as well, or mail them in, and we'll get the jerseys eventually this season. But what if you're not, you go there for that purpose, you're not even a huge Tigers fan. That's all you were living for all this season. That's the one game you wanted to go to see that jersey, get it in your hands, and you get nothing. You go home with nothing. Now, they do get you do get that plaque, the little thing, which is a replica of his plaque, in Cooperstown. So that was nice. I saw that, the miniature version of it. Really cool to look at. My parents have one. We have it now at the Delta Resort, I like to call it, in my house. So that's cool to have in our possession. But yeah, the Tigers did, you can say, they did drop the ball a little bit.
Quick note, best wishes from the network to Leonis Martin. I guess he was dealing with a really bad infection. I mean, he was playing really well for Cleveland. If you paid attention, he had hit back-to-back home runs in back-to-back games, and all of a sudden he gets ill, and an infection kind of reached some organs, or I think along the lines of a severe illness that took a turn for the worse, but I think he's recovering in a hospital, so all the best to him. That was really a wild story, and it was nice to see that he was performing for his new ball club, but it'll be interesting to see if he can get back on the field the rest of the season.
A bacterial infection, too, for Leonis Martin, so we send our prayers to him. Now, he's a Bulldog going through all that. You had mentioned, is Matt Stafford a Bulldog? Well, yeah, he is. He went to Georgia. He's a Georgia Bulldog. Come on. More of a Bulldog than Jack Morris ever was. So I wanted to also say that. Get that little quip in really quick.
Now, the other question that people are kind of looking at is that Nick Castellanos, obviously, when you go 5 for 5, it's a nice performance. People are wondering, and they're asking, and I put a poll question sponsored by one of our great sponsors, the Detroit Sports Commission. You can check out all the great events coming into town at DetroitSports.org. Great organization. They're one of my favorite sponsors that we work with here on the network. They put on great events, and we're thankful that we work with the Detroit Sports Commission. Definitely go check out DetroitSports.org, a great sponsor of our network. And they sponsor our polls, and one of the polls that we put out earlier this week is Nick Castellanos the right fielder of the future? 79% of the voters early on that got in said no. They don't think he's the right fielder of the future, but I feel like it's being debated in the organization because some people have come out and said, look, this time of year when you're 20 games out, you're basically riding out the rest of the season, why not throw Nick Castellanos at first base and see what he can do? But on the other side of the coin, there are other players that, you have there. You got a Ducey, you got, Cabrera coming back next year. I don't think that he's slotted for first base in the future, but many people seem to want to say that Nick Castellanos should be the DH/first baseman of the future.
Well, I think he has a long-term future with the Tigers at least, and I'm going to say that because when he gets a chance to play a miserable ball club like the White Sox, he mashes and gets 5 hits, the most he's ever had in a single game. I still want to see Nick Castellanos hit in a pennant race in meaningful games against meaningful teams that are good, that are relevant ball clubs. Now, we saw him in the first half really break out, have a great first half to the 2018 campaign. But outside of that game Monday night against the Chi Sox, when he went off, had the 5 hits, hit the home run too, he was hitting 173 in the second half of the season. In 19 games, 75 ABs leading into that contest Monday night at Comerica against the White Sox. So he was miserable out of the gate in the second half of this season. I want to see him hit and do damage against the Red Sox, against the Yankees, against these good ball clubs, and in meaningful games down the stretch one season when the Tigers are finally relevant again, which they're not, clearly not relevant in 2018, in third place and way out of the American League Central Division race. So can he do it in a meaningful, competitive season for the Tigers when they're competing for a wild card spot at least? Right now, the verdict is still out there. I don't think it's been determined if he can produce in that manner. Now, can he be the right fielder of the future? I don't think he's good enough with the glove. He has a cruddy glove. It's not reliable. And I think he's the first baseman of the future. Or at least should be. If I was managing the Tigers, if I was in the front office, on the field as a skipper, as in Ron Gardenhire, I would direct the Tigers to use him in that manner as the starting first baseman going into next season, because Miguel Cabrera really should slide into that DH role on a permanent basis next season, because Victor Martinez's contract is set to expire at the end of the season, and they're not re-signing him. The odds of that on a Big Vito's over-under are below 1%. Okay, they're like 0.000001. That's the percent chance of the Tigers resigning Vimar at the end of this season. So Cabrera should slide gracefully into that DH spot on a regular basis next season. And why can't Casty slide into the first base spot on a regular basis? That's what I would do. I would do that if I was leading the Tigers organization as Al Avila and on the field, as Ron Gardenhire in that role of manager.
And the other article, and I don't know how deeply you've been reading since the Tigers have been in a swoon recently, but holy cow, the Tigers don't take walks. The Tigers swing at an efficiency where people are looking and going, whoa, they strike out a lot, they don't get on base enough, and that's not conducive to winning baseball. Have you looked at that? And do you wonder, okay, I understand that there's shifts in place for some Detroit Tigers batters, but do you feel like the Detroit Tigers plate discipline is where it needs to be in order for them to be successful?
Well, Jacoby Jones had 120 strikeouts after Saturday night, 20 walks only, so 100 more strikeouts than base on balls taken. That's not good. They don't walk. They don't have much plate discipline. Jacoby Jones almost, spearheads the movement. He really does. And the only guy that really sees a lot of pitches per at bat or doesn't strike out, let's say, is Jose Iglesias. He's the guy that has the most plate discipline and really will make contact instead of striking out. Outside of Jose Iglesias, who really can you rely upon not to K? Not a lot of guys. I mean, Jamer Candelario right now is a leadoff hitter, and he'll K. Maybe not. He doesn't K as often as Jacoby Jones, and he's more of the leadoff hitter type than Jacoby Jones, even a guy like Jacoby that has more speed than Jamer. But Jamer at least will get on base at a 320-something clip. It's still not great. It's not good enough for a leadoff hitter, but that's how despicable, Doc, the Tigers lineup is from 1 through 9 right now. There's no true leadoff hitter, and the most reliable hitter are some cast-offs, like Niko Goodrum. Jim Adducci has killed the ball of late. Can he keep it up? Probably won't, but veterans like that, older guys, Adduci especially is older, not Niko Goodrum, but these guys have been cast-offs. They weren't going to be relied upon this season, and right now, honestly, Doc, they're the 2 most reliable hitters in the Tigers' order on a game-to-game basis. Because you can't just take into account the Nick Castellanos game Monday night and say, oh, he's Mr. Reliable now all of a sudden, because he hasn't showcased the ability to be that in the second half at large.
Let's look inside the numbers. The Detroit Tigers are one of 2 Major League Baseball teams with an on-base percentage below 300.
I believe it. Look at their lineup. All those guys with OBPs below 300 and immensely below 300 at times, such as Jacoby Jones. Once again, I keep using him as the example, but really, he kind of spearheads the movement by the Tigers to swing and miss and not to walk, not to take enough pitches to draw the walk and get on base.
And one key thing that people have noted is the Tigers have swung at 1,349 first pitches, 6th most in the majors. They have made 310 outs when putting the ball in play, 12th most in the majors. So basically, when we talk about plate discipline, the ability to get the count in your favor, the Tigers don't do that. They swing a lot at first pitches. They're getting out, and it doesn't behoove them in terms of an offense, especially with a team that gets shut out that many times. I think they've been shut out damn near 14 times when all of last year they were shut out 12 times, that they got to do a much better job top to bottom in that offense of being plate disciplined.
Well, now Jacoby Jones placed on the 10-day DL. I mean, how much worse can his season get? He's a 4th outfielder at best, placed on the 10-day DL as of August 13th. With a right hamstring strain, is without a timetable for his return. So, who knows when he will return. His season, 2018 campaign, largely has been miserable, at the plate especially. Now, in the field, has a good glove, can cover a lot of ground, corner outfield spot, center field, has played that at Comerica Park gracefully, and can really get it done with the glove. You got to give him credit for that, but everything else, he doesn't do enough to warrant a major league roster spot, honestly.
Yeah, some people that have messaged us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast will blame Ron Gardenhire. They'll say, look, you got a guy like Jose Iglesias who's batting way down in the order, but when he swings, he makes contact. People will say, well, you could adjust the lineup. That's why they blame Ron Gardenhire. People who message us on our Twitter page will also say that part of the strategy that Ron Gardenhire has to take a look at is who's leading off. I mean, you got to set the table correctly, and when you have Ronnie Rodriguez, somebody who's inexperienced, I mean, is that really logistical when you have better hitters that maybe could set the table like a Jose Iglesias? So, kudos to you guys out there for good analysis on our Twitter page. Feel free, message us anytime. We read it. We might even bring up your tweet live on a podcast at Detroit Podcast. Message anytime. You know what? I think it's fair. Plate discipline is something to talk about and to be critical of with this team going forward, because if Ron Gardenhire doesn't put the team in the right position, and a lot of people are critical of Lloyd McClendon, if that doesn't get corrected, this will continue in the future going forward with this rebuild.
But they're not going to lose their jobs. Like, if anybody's saying, oh, Ron Gardenhire should lose his job now, do you remember what people thought about Ron Gardenhire when they were overachieving? They loved him. He was the class of the town, the king, the mayor of the town, wasn't he? And now he's what? A piece of crap all of a sudden because they didn't adjust the lineup in time?
Now he's a glorified fisherman?
It's a glorified fisherman. That's all he's good for now, I guess. No, but I would say he has adjusted his lineup recently. Jose Iglesias has been batting number 2 recently. And Jamer, who gets on base, even at a better clip than Jose Iglesias, has been batting number 1. He's not a true leadoff hitter, but in this day and age of the analytical mindset and using analytics highly, Gardenhire has adjusted his lineup. So, and I think in the Tigers' favor, to help out the Tigers. So I would say you got to give Ron Gardenhire that much, that he does deserve a little bit of credit for finally adjusting. Did it take him a long time to adjust? Yes, but look at his options, Doc. What he has to work with. There's not an immense amount of talent. The lineup options are extremely limited. So him trying to find guys that can bat, leadoff, hit at the top of the order, can complement the leadoff hitter, can drive in runners at the 3rd spot, in the cleanup spot. Well, good God. He has a hard job in trying to find guys that can do that on a game-to-game basis, doesn't he, with this current Tigers roster?
What do the Tigers have upcoming in the next 7 days prior to our next record?
They finish the series up against the White Sox at home, then go on the road against the Twinkies, a team they just played over the weekend at home, go to Minnesota for 4 to finish up this week.
Then is it a Cubs series next week?
Then it is a Cubs series.
Ooh,
you will be there, huh?
I'm hoping to be there for both games. That'd be nice. Tuesday, Wednesday evening, I believe.
Tuesday and Wednesday night, correct, against the Chicago Cubs, and against the White Sox right after that. So Cubs and White Sox, back-to-back series.
And the 24th, I believe, is Michigan State College Days, where they give away the Michigan State hat. I might actually go as media and a fan, buy a ticket, go in real fast, get the hat, come
get
up
that MSU hat. You would love to get that MSU hat, huh?
I would love to, obviously. I'm one of those guys that have one of the original ones that they did maybe 3 years ago, and I do like University Days, and it's fun stuff. I was there when it was Michigan Day, and they were blaring the music, and...
Too much for you to handle, huh?
Too much for me
You
to
didn't
handle.
like it. Now, you despise all that, but you don't despise the MSU University Day at the ballpark. Now, it is funny. We brought this up already earlier on in this podcast, but Detroit Mercy's University Day at the ballpark, did you know that it's the last one of all the universities they're honoring at the ballpark? Detroit Mercy gets the last game of the season.
Did you sign up to go to that one?
No, I ain't going to that. But come on, Detroit Mercy gets that much disrespect to be the last university recognized at Comerica Park this season.
Tell me the date. I might go get one of those too.
Well, you go get a hat. Oh, yeah, you're proud of love.
I might do
graduate, right? So you went to graduate school at Detroit Mercy. So not just me that has some ties to Detroit Mercy. I hope everybody does realize that. Now, really, the Tigers could eat up on some weaker competition here. White Sox, the rest of the way this series, already 9-1 against the Chi Sox. Against the Twinkies, they already ate them up right over the weekend at home, though. On the road, where they're much worse. The Tigers, you would have to believe, only win 2 out of 4 against the Twinkies. Then they turn around and play the Cubs. That's a tough series. Maybe the Cubs are the best team in the NL. How they're playing, coming from behind and winning ball games. Like on Sunday Night Baseball. Did you see that home run? The walk-off grand slam hit by the Cubs at Wrigley Field to beat the Nats. The Nats blew another game. Have blown all these games because of their bullpen. They lose that game in primetime on Sunday Night Baseball Sunday night. How distasteful was that for all these Nats fans out there for this underachieving Nats ball club right now, who, outside of Max Scherzer, who's really succeeding? I mean, Bryce Harper has had a better second half than a first half, but man, of their star power, they have deeply underachieved, and they're really the Tigers of the NL, in my opinion, with a weak bullpen, the team that's been underachieving, right, despite all the talent. You could compare them. I think you really could make the comparison of the Nats to the Detroit Tigers of years past.
And in the American League, J.D. Martinez continues his torrid pace, unbelievable, hitting 37 home runs, unbelievable talent. I mean, my goodness.
Ripping and tearing the cover off the ball. Then they have Mookie Betts, the best player in all of baseball outside of Mike Trout, on that same team as J.D. Martinez. And J.D. could go for the Triple Crown. He's been that good this year. Mookie Betts, one bad stretch, one bad slump, and J.D. Martinez might get the Triple Crown. Like, people are talking about that now. And he has hit for extraordinary power. And at Fenway Park, with those short distances, like down the right field line, J.D. has eaten that up. And he's been a great power hitter this year for the Red Sox, who were looking for that kind of hitter in the middle of their order. And J.D. Martinez has supplied that kind of power. And Martinez, guess what? Will get some votes. He will in the American League MVP award voting. I think J.D. will garner some votes, but Mookie Betts right now, I think, is at the top of the candidates to win the American League MVP award. And then number 2 actually might be Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Indians, not Mike Trout, because Mike Trout currently on the DL. I think that hurts Mike Trout's candidacy for the American League MVP this season. And kind of now, people will pick apart Trout's stats because he's been so good in the past, has already won multiple MVP awards. People want to see somebody new win it, and people are much harder now on Trout when considering him for the MVP. And also, Trout is hurt by the fact that his team is almost completely irrelevant, is way out of the playoff race in the American League West Division and in the American League as a whole. So Trout's candidacy for the MVP award this season is hurt by that fact as well.
One last thing. Are you concerned at all regarding the recent decline in play of the Houston Astros? They've kind of had a stretch there where they lost a lot of games consecutively.
I would say you don't worry about it, and probably until September, like leading into October, that's when you start worrying about it. And then you look at the Tigers in 2006. They were miserable down the stretch. And guess what? They went to the World Series. So a team can flip the switch very quickly if they're good enough to do so. And the Houston Astros, come on, they're good enough, right? They won the World Series last year, and they're even more talented, you could argue, this season.
Episode 155, a marquee podcast, the one in which we plant our flag, Detroit sports media members, Detroit Tigers reporters, you and I, and it's a great place to be, man. I can't wait to talk next week.
Follow the DSP Network on Twitter at Detroit Podcast, and follow me to make me feel good at the end of the night at Vito Jerome on Twitter also.
And if you see Vito in the media room, say hi. It's okay. He doesn't bite.
I don't bite. Not that much, at least. Adios, everybody.
Not until date 2.